I've been buying these eco tools on Facebook Market and Craigslist used, and I've got some that are 5 years old now. I've been using them for a couple years. Both of these mowers are, 2015, 2016, and the 7.5 amp hour battery that's sitting there is late 2016. So if you have hills, the self-propelled feature is pretty cool. It'll help you just help the mower pull itself up the hill. That can really reduce the amount of energy it takes to mow the lawn, reduce the amount of time for sure. And the 7.5 amp hour battery comes with the self-propelled mower, and for good reason, because it does take extra juice that way. But the 7.5 amp hour battery is great for the mowing deck, with or without the self-propelled feature turned on. And the 5 amp hour is also just fine for a small yard. The 7.5 amp hour is pretty substantial. It'll do a decent sized yard without having to recharge. And I do believe that comes with the supercharger. So when it does come time to recharge it, it recharges pretty fast. All the batteries you can see I have here are the older version. The newer version, I think maybe 2019 and newer, has like a gauge on it, I think, that you can see, with the battery life. Whereas the supercharger I have shows a gauge as it's charging, but these batteries don't. They just have a single, you press the button, you get a color, either green or red, I think maybe orange. So the mowers are amazing. They're adjustable, they're foldable, they're relatively lightweight. Obviously the self-propelled version is going to be heavier. It's substantially heavier than the non-self-propelled version. But the self-propelled version also has a speed adjustment, so you can crank it up and move along pretty quick. So if you're not, if the mower's not bogging down, then you can get through it pretty fast with that speed turned up all the way. And yeah, I have no complaints. I love them. They're quiet. You can be on the phone while you're mowing. There's little headlights on there, so you can mow in the dark. And because it's so quiet, you can mow later at night without disturbing people. And a lot of advantages to that. And the fact that it folds up so small is nice. It's relatively water resistant and easy to clean. There's a bag that you can attach to collect the clippings if you wanted to. And so the next thing I got here is the weed whacker. This is it's got the carbon fiber shaft. It's a brushless version, and it's I think a 15-inch, and it's been great. It's got a really nice, it's long, so it's good for tall people. And if you tuck this piece here under your elbow, that helps you kind of wield the thing a little bit, so you're not hurting your back as much. And it's got a power load feature where you can press this button right here, and when you're feeding in the string, it'll just wind itself up automatically. Although I will mention, when you take this piece off and get inside there, there's another piece inside that you sometimes have to take off and clean underneath it, because if something gets wound up inside that under the second cover, the power load feature won't work right. So that's something to keep in mind. It's a little trick I learned on YouTube that helped bring this back to life for me. But it's a heck of a weed trimmer, I'll tell you. It creates green mist. You can cut a lot with it. So I have the 530 CFM blower. That's been extremely useful in all kinds of ways. It's just, you wouldn't believe the amount of ways that this thing comes in handy. So that thing is good for the 2.5 amp hour battery because it's relatively lightweight in your hand, but it also works good with the 5 amp hour too. And maybe you get a little bit of extra power when you're using the 5 amp hour. Same thing goes for the weed trimmer. Like, I usually use the 2.5 amp hour, just tuck it under my arm, and that's plenty of power for the weed trimmer, and it helps keep the weight down a little bit. So I have the 16-inch version, and there is an 18-inch version now, and I think that the 18-inch version also has a little bit more power. This one I usually use with the 5 amp hour battery. It works just fine with the 2.5 if you're trying to climb a tree with it and you want to keep the weight down. But if you're going to be cutting through a bunch of wood, using the 5 amp hour or even the 7.5 amp hour might not be a bad idea. And although it's only a 16-inch, I have used it to cut through like a 32-inch piece of oak just by going from both sides and kind of working my way in there. Maybe it was more like a 30-inch, but I was able to get that piece of oak apart with that size. And I went through a couple chains on this, And as long as you have a nice fresh chain, I think I was getting changed for like $10 on eBay. As long as you have a nice fresh chain, man, this thing is amazing. It's so quiet, no smell, no fumes, no carburetor to mess around with. And it does leak a little bit when you put bar oil in there, so you can't really, like every chainsaw I've ever come across. I hate the fact that they leak bar oil, but I think it's almost comes with the territory, with just the nature of how the bar oil feeds or something like that. But it makes me not want to put it in there, you know, which is really bad. But I do put it in there, but it's just, it is a little bit annoying to have to worry about that. Most of the time mine is probably empty because of that. But yeah, it's not too bad, and I keep the chain sharp, and it really does a fantastic job. I do process a lot of firewood and stuff. I help people bring me firewood, but I also collect firewood from the woods and from the side of the road and stuff like that. So having this thing in the trunk is, it's amazing. And again, the quiet, I can't say enough about how quiet it is, because you don't have to wear earmuffs, and you don't have to raise the dead. And you know, like, especially if you're cutting wood on the side of the road, some tree that fell somewhere or something like that, it's nice to be a kind of just, it's more peaceful. And obviously not having to deal with a carburetor in regards to these mowers, the trimmer, the blower, and the chainsaw is really worth its weight in gold. And you know, all these things here I bought on Facebook used. I never paid retail for these, and nothing, not one piece of equipment that I've gotten has gone bad, even though I bought them used, and even though I do use them quite a bit. And like I said, that big 7.5 amp hour battery right there is actually from late 2016, so it's almost 5 years old. And the guy I bought it from, it came with this self-propelled mower, and it looked like it had a lot of use, because I had to actually, I took the blade off the mower and sharpened it, because it had clearly had quite a bit of use. And that was easy to do. It was just one bolt, took it off, took the blade, and I just kind of cleaned it up a little bit with my angle grinder. And that was easy to do. Same thing with this one. I cleaned up the blade on that one. So these batteries have had a heck of a lot of use. Now, I know some people have had batteries go bad, but in my experience, that hasn't been the case so far. There's also a more powerful blower available, but I think it's like really expensive. But honestly, if I could get a decent deal on the even more powerful one, I would. This one is awesome. It has tons of power, but sometimes it's even, you know, you can never have too much power sometimes. I mean, I just recently stained my deck, and it was covered in water the next morning, and I actually was able to just blow the water right off the deck using the leaf blower. It's amazing what you can do with these things. You can clean out your gutters. If they're not too bad, you can actually blow right down your gutter and clean them out. I was even using it every once in a while to help blow the fumes off of the deck when I was trying to get it to dry when it was a really still day. There's a lot of different uses for these things, so if I could get the more powerful one, just for the heck of it, I would. I love how this one has adjustable. You can go to a relatively low speed, or you can go to a high speed, and if you push this button, you get like maximum speed. So that blower's been awesome. All right, guys, well, if you have any questions or comments, please post them up. I'd love to get some of the newer equipment. You know, the 18-inch chainsaw looks really cool, and I think they have, I'm not sure if these mowers actually are brushless. They do adjust they automatically adjust to the depth of the grass and how much resistance they're feeling. So I thought that they were brushless, but my neighbor said maybe they're not. And so I know that they do have some that are specifically brushless, and if that's the case, and they're even better than these, that would be awesome. But these ones are really powerful, and it is nice having 21 inches to you know, make a little bit quicker work of mowing. All right, guys, thanks for watching.